This week, we continue our three-part episodic series of women who expose America's cultural pressures to abort. As we shared before, it's nearly impossible nowadays to read a headline or hear an activist talk about abortion without hearing them say, "People of color need abortions more than any other group." What once was never said out loud is now shouted. And that message is, if you're of a different race or socioeconomic class, you need abortions more in your community. I've often wondered how this push and this type of messaging impacts people growing up and living in those communities. So I caught up with women across different ethnic and poverty levels to understand how this push to abort in their neighborhoods impacted their decisions and how they feel about it today. Join me for this episode as I speak with Mayela, a Latina woman who migrated from Mexico to Arizona as a young girl. She shares her horrific, tragic personal story of an unwanted but pushed abortion from the center she visited. One of the key things Mayela's story reveals is the lack of informed consent and clear communication that she was denied from the abortion center, especially as she needed a translator to understand what was going on to her and her child's bodies. From Exposed, Abortion in America, This is Under Pressure. Why are minority communities targeted for abortion? Part 2.
Maria Mayela Banks. I was young, probably about 10, 11 years old. All I knew was that my dad was in America and that we were going to be together. And he had been in America for 6 years. So I had been dreaming about us being together for 6 years. And in a way, I had idolized America. It was like going to be a dream come true for us to all be together. And came to the area where I grew up, which was in central Arizona. It was probably easier for my siblings than it was for me. I had a really hard time with language.
And what about reading comprehension? Was that hard as well?
Oh, it was very hard. Math was completely out of the question. Reading was very hard. Speech was hard in itself.
And what was your hope for after graduating school, after high school? What were your plans?
I didn't have any plans. Of course, you get to the end of the year, people around me were planning to go to college. They were getting scholarships. They had been, really focused on good grades and everything else, having meetings with counselors and parents, and I had nothing. So after high school, I just kind of went into a depression because I couldn't do anything. It was even hard for me to get a job at a local store or a fast food restaurant. I actually got denied a job at McDonald's because my communication skills were so poor. My comprehension was really not that great. And so it is sad to look back because I had some strengths. I had a lot of strengths, but I also had some things that were really holding me back. I was 20 and I just wanted to be like everybody else, and everybody around me was partying and having such wonderful time dating. So I kind of decided in my heart that that's what I wanted. I just wanted to fit in.
I think you even told me that you called yourself by a different name. Is that right?
Oh, yes. I had a lot of shame for who I was. I didn't like being the little Mexican girl that everybody called me. And Mayela was such a strange name. And I just didn't fit in. And so when I was in beauty school, I cut off my long, beautiful, dark hair, and I permed it and made it into this really curly thing. And I changed my name. My name was May. which is kind of like short for Mayela, M-A-Y. But that seemed to be more acceptable. And so that's who I was for a period of my life. She was such an easy target for the abortion industry.
Mayela, what about you as May made, do you think, such an easy target for the abortion centers and staffers that you would soon encounter?
Well, part of it was that I was really pretending to be somebody I was not. I had no, I had problems with my identity, with just accepting who I was and being the best me that I could be. You know, it really doesn't, I've learned through the years that it doesn't matter what you're born into or what race you are. It really matters that you are able to accept who you are. And from that place, you know, God meets you where you're at. And He created you the way you are for a purpose. There's a reason who you are. And I didn't know that about myself. I didn't know that about myself as a Mexican young woman, and I didn't know that about myself as a woman. I made an easy target. Another reason as well is because my communication skills were so poor.
And I think a lot of people in this country will fall into this category, but English as a second language and still struggling with understanding contracts and that business side of English that we encounter almost every day.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is, because there's a language, right? Finance has a language. The medical field has a language. The abortion industry has a language. And if you're not familiar with the terminology, if you're not familiar with the meaning of what it is that they're trying to communicate, I mean, you just don't get it. And that it really is what it was for me. It's like, even if I tried to read something, I wasn't getting it.
You know, I think a lot of times we forget that a lot of different countries, and you came from Mexico, they don't have an abortion culture like we do here in the United States. You know, the United States is a global pariah when it comes to abortion. We have some of the very most permissive, liberal abortion rules on the globe. You know, we're 1 out of 8 countries that allows that all trimester abortion. So can you kind of explain to people listening how you really did not even understand the procedure of abortion itself?
Oh, no. I mean, I had no idea. When I walked into that Planned Parenthood clinic, I didn't know enough about my own body to even think I may be pregnant. You know, I just wasn't feeling good. My friend told me to go there. When I saw the sign Planned Parenthood, you know, I'm thinking this is a family medical center. And I did not understand that this is a organization that specializes on killing unborn children, which is what abortion is. And so when I went in there, they put me on the pill, and the pill didn't work, and then I had to go back. And then they did a pregnancy test and then told me I was pregnant. I didn't understand, you know, if they even told me how pregnant I was. I had no comprehension of what that was. But I also just was clueless to the fact that they were selling me on abortion, that is what they were there for. So when I walked in there, I didn't really understand that that's what I was walking in for.
And Mayela, once you found out you were pregnant from the abortion center that you visited, what was your ask of them? Like, what was your next step that you felt like you really wanted?
Well, I didn't know. I was just in shock because uh, here I was. They were telling me I was pregnant, and the first thing that rose up in me is just fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's I was so afraid that I was going to disappoint my dad.
And what did they say to you? I'm sure they could sense that fear. I'm sure it was pretty palpable. So, what did they say in response to that?
Oh, she was pretty casual about it. She just, made me know that there was, that I didn't have to stay pregnant. I asked her what she meant, and she said, well, you can just go on with your life and it'd be like nothing happened, and I'm like, wow, is that legal? And, it's like, because I'm thinking something has to be wrong with this. And she said, oh, yes, it's perfectly legal. And the other question I asked her was, does it hurt? It's like, I really didn't know what it was that she was selling me on. But she had just finished giving me a whole list of reasons why it really wasn't the right time for me to bring a child into the world,
Did she give you a laundry list of the reasons why you should not have a baby? I mean, how did she become an expert on your life after meeting you for a quick meeting one time?
Well, it's like I had just started a new job. I was living with a friend. I didn't really have an address. I had no money. If I was afraid to go home, then I had no parents backing me up. I was not married. I mean, she just went through the whole list of, telling me, this is just not the right time for you. You can always try another time.
So she used all of the private information that you had to share with her in the screening part or the earlier part of the meeting with her, and then turned it around to say, these are the negatives for you.
Yeah, that was it. She just, and you know what's sad about it is she was pregnant. So here's this pregnant young woman at a place called Planned Parenthood that's telling me this is just not the right time for you to be a mother.
Wow.
Interesting
that she deemed her life worthy of carrying the child, but yours is insufficient.
I did walk out of there thinking that. And the funny thing about it is I was working at a mall and I ran into her after my abortion had happened. I was high on drugs because I was so broken that I had started using drugs after that abortion. And I remember seeing her pulling a carriage. And I ran to her because she had her baby, and I wanted to see how beautiful her baby was. And she looked at me and literally ran away from me with her baby.
But unfortunately, Mayela, our listeners will soon realize she was not the only one in your life who pressured or kind of bullied you into this abortion in this way. She was just the beginning, was she not?
She was just the beginning. All she had to do was sell me on an appointment because I was living in northern Arizona, is where I was working, and that was a college town. So it had a Planned Parenthood. It's like most college towns do. Now I know. But her job was to sell the abortion, and she did. She sold me on an appointment. I walked out of there with an appointment, but the abortion itself, the clinic, was in 2.5 hours south of there. And so when I walked out of there with that appointment, I pretty much just put it out of my mind, forgot about it, went about my life. And I don't know how much time went by, but I started to feel better. I no longer had morning sickness. And I was taking better care of myself. I still hadn't told my parents that I was pregnant, and I really didn't know what I was going to do, but I was working, and I was feeling good when I received a phone call at work from Planned Parenthood Clinic.
They called you at work?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I had gotten pulled off the floor. I was a hairdresser, and I got pulled off the floor to take this call, and this woman is very upset at me. She was calling me because I had missed my appointment, and she was telling me that there was deadline and that she was going to give me another appointment. She was going to, give me another chance, but that I had to be to that appointment, that I could not miss it because there was some sort of a deadline that I have to keep. And so I agreed to that second appointment because I thought, well, I can go in, I can ask doctor questions, figure out what this is all about, and if I don't like what I hear, I just walk out.
So you wanted full information and informed consent on what the abortion even was from these people.
Yes, and I was just being pressured so much. I was not, really being given another choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't feel like I had another choice, so I thought I'd listen to them.
At any point, did they offer you any other types of resources? Did they talk about adoption, or did they talk about, networks or support for keeping the baby?
The networks for support or the idea of keeping the baby never came up. The pregnant lady did mention adoption briefly, but the way she offered it was just like a quick box that she needed to check. In doing that, mm-hmm. She didn't bother to ask me why or what was my thoughts on that. And really, my first response was no. And what I meant by that was, if I had my baby, I would never want to give it up. Mm. But she didn't ask anything else. It was just like a box that she was checking and moved on to the fact that I just wasn't ready to be a parent.
So take me to when you get to the second appointment that they have harassed you about now at work. So you do go to that. What are you, when you walk through the door of that second appointment, what are you hoping to accomplish there? What was that interaction like?
Well, I like I said, I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I walked in there. Unfortunately, I was walking into a trap because I walked in there and they would not even let me go to the back. I was stuck in the waiting room. The girl at the window gave me some papers to sign, and she took my money. I had been told that, because remember, I asked the lady if it was going to hurt, and she told me, well, if you pay $200, we'll make sure it doesn't hurt. We'll give you something for the pain. And I thought, oh, it's going to be painful. And that's why it's like, I don't do pain well. And so I just was very hesitant.
Take me back to those papers that they made you sign. Did you understand what the papers were saying? Did you understand the English fully? Did they offer a translator?
Oh, no. It was just a lady on a window. She just handed me forms. She took my money. She told me that I had to sign those papers before I could go in. And so it's like I couldn't see anyone or talk to anyone unless I signed those papers. That was my understanding. And so I just signed, and I don't really know what I was signing. I have no idea what I signed.
And I know speaking to a doctor was one of your important prerequisites to even thinking about an abortion, because you wanted to actually know what it was and get that information and learn about it. What was that like when you told them, I want to see a doctor?
Well, it wasn't, remember, I had to actually sign before I could be let back. My impression was I'm going to go get to see a doctor, but I was actually taken into an area where I was asked to undress. And I did ask them, where's the doctor? And they just kind of waved me off and said, oh, he'll be along in a minute. And you need to get undressed and sit back. And so I went ahead and did what they told me and waited. But unfortunately, what they were doing is they were administering the drug that I had given the money for, and I drifted off. So I really didn't understand what they were doing.
But you got really sleepy then and started drifting off?
Yes, I just got kind of sleepy and drifted off. And sadly, I didn't wake up until I could hear, and I imagine this was probably in the middle of the abortion, that I could hear a lot of noises, but I was drugged. I couldn't move. I tried to move, and I couldn't move my body. I could hear a lot of like vacuum cleaner or something, just loud noise, and it was painful. That is when my maternal instincts came alive. And it was really too late for me to actually learn what an abortion is, but that is what an abortion is. An abortion is when your child is being killed inside of you.
Mayela, so there was never any point in which you were given an understanding of what abortion was before. It was only that they had you learn while they were performing it on you. Is that right?
That was my personal experience. That's when it hit me. That's when I came to the full realization, this is what an abortion is.
So what happened next, Mayela?
I drifted back off and woke up, and they were telling me to get dressed. I thought, I remember, I guess, what that first lady had told me, that it would be like nothing had happened. And so I kept telling myself that it was like nothing had happened. But
that wasn't your experience afterward, was it? I mean, was there more to come even after that day?
Oh, yes. It had happened. And even while I was there, before I left, I was bleeding profusely, and I bled for days after that. I couldn't be alone, so the person that had taken me there actually had to be with me, and it was just it was terrifying. It was very, very horrible because, but as much as I was bleeding, I was weak, and I was in so much pain, but the pain inside, because now I knew I felt guilt, just immense guilt that I had killed my child. And so that guilt was just the worst pain than even the physical pain. But I just didn't realize how damaged I was until days later when I finally found the strength to get up.
Mayela, had you been laying down basically ever since and bleeding all those days?
Yeah, I remember I had to go back 2.5 hours north. And so the person that took me actually had to, they were so concerned about me, they didn't think I could make the ride up to my place of residence. And so they actually took me to somebody's house that they knew. And that person allowed me to just lay on their floor. They laid a blanket on the floor and they let me lay there for a few hours before they had to take me out, literally. And then he was able to take me back up north, but even then he couldn't take me home to my apartment because he couldn't leave me alone. He was afraid for me. And so he just laid a mattress on the floor on his mom's house, and they let me just lay there for I don't know how long. I'm thinking it was at least a couple of days that I just kind of lay there and cried, and eventually I gained some strength, and I talked myself into going back to work. And I had to go back to work. I had to go on with my life. I had to pretend like nothing happened. And that's when I went to get dressed and realized again what I had done, because I couldn't fit into my blouse. My breast has swollen with milk for that baby that was now dead. And I couldn't put my clothes on. I had to borrow clothes to be able to go to work. And even after going to work, I was leaking and just constantly being reminded of what I had done, and the guilt and just the shame of what I had done. I just felt like everybody knew what I had done, and that everybody was looking at me. It was just a horrible feeling.
Mayela, the fact that you were producing milk for your child after the abortion is very clear that you were pretty far along. Had they let you know how far along you were in the pregnancy?
Like I said, if that first lady told me, I didn't understand what she was telling me. And after that, there was no other examination. So I missed that appointment, and then was rescheduled. So I have no idea how much time had passed. But they did not re-examine me.
And that's really key, because that says they did not do an ultrasound that day when they just took you back and had you get undressed and went ahead with the procedure. Was there any other side effects from this abortion?
Well, I did. I don't know how long it went, how long I was able to work before I started developing an infection. Maybe the infection was there all along and I was just trying to push through it, but eventually I couldn't. And I found myself just collapsing in the back room of my work. And someone there actually took me to the emergency room. And I just remember that doctor's look in his face, he was just shaking his head at me because I think he knew what had happened. I couldn't tell him. I don't know if the person that took me there told him, but he just shook his head, and he treated the infection he gave me. I assume was antibiotics. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I just mindlessly did what I was told, and eventually the infection went away, but then I was reminded and traumatized again. When I thought everything was finally over, I just felt a cramp. Again, I was at work. I just felt a cramp. I was cramping and hurting, and I ran to the bathroom just in time to see the remains of my baby coming out into the toilet. It was a reminder again and again and again of the trauma of that one act that I could not take back.
And Mayela, I think this is a really important point that this podcast hopefully will highlight for other women and other families who've gone through this situation, this bullying of abortion. Why is it, do you think, that you carried the full weight of all of this and had a hard time acknowledging the role that the abortion center played in pressuring and coercing you into this, unknown abortion?
I think it was just like I hated myself so much. But I just didn't know. Even now I look back, I actually heard testimonies from women that were in the abortion industry, and they were describing the whole process of talking somebody into an abortion. I didn't know that this is actually what their intention was to get that abortion money one way or another.
And why do
it's all about money.
Why do you think you were such an easy target for them?
I guess because I was just so naive and gullible, and I was just very dumb. I just didn't know a lot of things about myself, about the industry, about my baby. I was so ignorant and naive, and I believed anything. And honestly, when that lady told me that it was legal, my thought was, there is somebody that has a law degree that believes that this is okay, so it must be okay. Well, now I know that there's a lot of people with law degrees that are making some very bad choices for a lot of us who are ignoring our maternal instincts. We're ignoring just the reality of who we are. We are women that were created to give life. That is our privilege. That is our design. And it's a beautiful thing. We just haven't been told that before.
Do you think that they took advantage of your status as an immigrant and took advantage of the fact that you were a person who spoke English as a second language?
Yes, now I know that is what it is. It made me an easy target because of my lack of understanding of the language barrier. That is a fact.
What's your message to other women? We have many immigrant women in this country, and many who speak English as a second language. What's your message to them that may be in the same situation that you were, who have an unplanned pregnancy and they are scared and they are looking for help, but they've happened to find it in the place that's going to offer them one choice?
I I would want them to know, and I want you to know, if that is you, if you are pregnant, if you are being told that you don't have to be pregnant, but the reality of it is that you are. I want to tell you, it's okay, because this is your baby. It is special because it is yours. It is part of who you are. And there is a way for you and for your baby to be alive and to be healthy. There are so many people out there that are wanting to help you, that do care for you.
And Mayela, one of the things that you've mentioned to me before is that you were pressured by the abortion center with a broken promise. And what was that broken promise that they said to you about being a mother?
Oh, it's the whole deceptive lie of Planned Parenthood. You know, the deception that maybe this is not the right time, but later on you can. That was a lie, because as it turns out, that was my only pregnancy. I was never able to get pregnant again. And it was a complete lie. It was not a promise that they're able to make and keep.
Yeah, Mayela, that's a good point. Let me just repeat that. We've heard this from many women before who've said, the abortion center told me that this is not the right time for me, that I can always be a mother later. Can they make that promise credibly?
No, they can't. They don't create life. They don't give life. They cannot take your life away unless you give it away. And so I would say to anyone that's listening to those lies, don't listen to it. They promised me, even through their deceptive name, that I could plan when I could have a baby, that I can always pick my time, do it later on when I was more capable or more able to provide for my child. But I tell you that they cannot keep that promise.
And Mayela, if you could go back in this time machine that I'm making for us right now, and if you could offer words of strength to your younger self, to the woman who was named May at that time, what would you tell her?
I would say, May, you are beautiful just the way you are. You don't need to be anybody you're not. And you were made to be a mother. Enjoy your child. And your child is going to be a blessing to you.
Mayela, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your personal story. And it's not just your story, but it's the story of so many women that have experienced this pressure and this bullying across the country, and unfortunately women to come. And that's why we're making episodes like this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the latest accounts from women across the country that face societal pressure to abort. Join us as we finish this 3-part episodic series within a series, as we hear more personal accounts in depth. And join us for our next episode as we speak to Lorianne, a Floridian woman who grew up in poverty and saw the cultural pressures to abort all around her. From Exposed, Abortion in America, this is Under Pressure.